Was it? I is a cider drinker.
And a pear.
I like a pear.
Advised him to do something associated with eating or drinking, as those things never go out of fashion.
If there is something we need, it's a leap of faith. A step away from the comfort zone and be a little brave. So take a look around you. How far can you see? How far do you think you can run? Standing on your knees. It's a beautiful world out there. Just don't pass on the dare. If you have the will and a moment to spare, it's a beautiful world out there. It's a beautiful world.
Welcome to Hereford and the Museum of Cider here in Hereford itself. Go and have a look. Bulmers cider. A bale of hay there anyway. Yeah. Of straw.
Got a cider bath.
Yeah. £60,000. Wow. That's the version of this here then, look. Where the horse will go in the stock there, aren't they? Apples. Was it? I is a cider drinker.
What's the orange? Show me the Do you want a pear?
I like a pear. The old cider press there.
Percival Bulmer started making cider at the age of 20 at Crevenhill, a village 6 miles from the city of Hereford. As a child, Henry suffered from asthma and did not gain an education, and so decided to start his own business. His mother advised him to do something associated with eating or drinking, as those things never go out of fashion. In 1889, his elder brother, Edward Frederick, joined the company, and together they purchased an acre of land in Hereford to build a shack in which to make and store cider. Such was their success that the brothers purchased a further 10 acres, which enabled them to expand their business, and by 1893 the company was exporting to South Africa, India and Australia. In 1911, the company was awarded the royal warrant as purveyors of cider to King George V. Percy visited France to learn the art of champagne making, a process that was eventually applied to cider. Bulmers champagne cider was an immediate success, and by the 1920s, over 3 million bottles were stored in the cellars. Orchards were planted to ensure a continual supply of fruit, and in 1936, additional land was purchased for the expansion of the factory, thus increasing the production of the famous brands of Woodpecker, Strongbow and Pomaine. In 1966, the millionth ton of apples were milled, and the company flourished and developed factories in Australia and South Africa, and became a major employer locally with distribution centres throughout the country. The once family-owned business was converted into a public limited company in 1970 and was eventually taken over when the business was acquired by Scottish and Newcastle Brewery in 2003. The room in which you now stand was the company boardroom, and the building, including the original cider cellars, was acquired in 1979 by the Hereford Cider Museum Trust to preserve the history of cider making worldwide. Cider cellars were excavated in 1889 and covered an area in excess of 7 acres. Champagne cider was produced from 1906 and Pomaine its successor from 1960 onwards. Such was the popularity of the product that by 1920 over 2 million bottles were stored in the cellars. Now review the manufacturing process before entering the actual cellars where the champagne cider was made.
Got a bottle. It's empty.
I drank it.
You drank a few by the looks of it. Very labour intensive them days, isn't it? But you can see where the work came from then.
Backbreaking work, isn't it?
Yeah. Literally the cider cellars. All them all stacked and racked up. Millions and millions. Thousands anyway. I've still got cider in them as well, or something in them. I'm just looking. You can just see that, guys. Just about see it. Anyone fancy a drink?
Start it was, and I think it was about 5:30 we finished. We did have an hour for lunch because we used to go up and wander around the old streets, just to have a breath of fresh air. Of course, in our Wellingtons and dirty clothes, They used to say that one of Bulmers' angels.
That's cool. It's good though, isn't it? Yeah. I'll sell another one if you dial another number, maybe.
It was a sort of a square thingy, and there was a sheet of perspex in wood, in the front, and you could hook it up, and the hook of the corkscrew went over this little lever, and you pulled the handle, so the main of that shot towards this perspex, so it wouldn't go in your face. But sometimes, of course, it blew out before it got up there, and you had the thing, the dirt and all that all over you. But you got, as you knew, how to hold the bottle, so that, when you were putting the bottle in, you tried to sort of look at the way to the back of the thing rather than the front.
It's full of everything, isn't it? This is the original building, isn't it? Bulmers' original building here. Yeah.
Bought it to turn it into bought it back off into terms.
Into it, yeah. Back there with all them rows and rows. Tools for barrel making. Making their own barrels. Size of them barrels. Some barrels there, isn't there?
Oh, they cleaned by hand too, then lowered into the vessel and wrote what on the water that was scrubbed inside using soda as a cleaning agent. The inside walls were washed to dry before fumigating and food trash.
Couple of barrels down here. Oh, the heat.
Just the name which order.
Oh, with the.
When they were building.
Yeah, I can't pick that up probably. Oh, when they're building each one,
Yeah.
Just about say that.
About 6.
6, then 8, 8, 6, 19. So they'd know which one to put in each order. The vat house. See that quite because of the light. Old engine. Corks there. Bottling room. Seals. Look at that. 1902.
Yeah, yeah.
More than 1,000 years. In the deepest myth of Somerset, the legendary Isle of Avalon was known as the Isle of Apples, and apple trees still blossom on the surrounding hills. Sheppey's is one of the few traditional cider-making farms remaining in Somerset, and the present orchards have grown from a 5-acre orchard planted in 1880. The days when most West Country farms kept an orchard to make their own cider are long gone. For centuries, apples formed the backbone of the rural economy, and the journey from the orchard to the farm was a short one. Farmers paid attention to producing good cider because without it, they could not attract a steady workforce. The ration for a strong man was 4 to 6 pints a day, and half as much again at harvest time. The harvested apples were poured into a strata to be crushed. The apple pulp was traditionally bound into layers with straw to make a cheese before pressing. Overtime and rent were often paid in cider, and it became a currency in times of hardship. Cider making was at the very heart of community life. The cycle of work in the apple orchards begins with pruning in the midwinter days of January.
What I'm looking for when I'm pruning is basically more of a Christmas tree shape. We're trying to get as much light and air into the middle to stop disease and get as much apple all over the tree rather than just on the outside branches.
The apple buds burst through in May, bringing the promise of an abundant harvest. Pollinating the blossom is an important part of apple culture, helped by bees kept on the farm. To visit a traditional cider farm in spring and walk through the orchards when row upon row of apple trees are in blossom is one of the finest sights of the year. By early summer, regular grass mowing has begun, preparing the ground for the apple fall of harvest time. The apples will grow almost imperceptibly until they are ready to be harvested. The longhorn cattle, too, will benefit from the apple harvest long after the summer has passed. It is late autumn before the best cider apples are ripe, hanging in heavy clusters of red and gold. Harvesting begins in earnest now and takes about 6 weeks to complete. Every year, about 700 tons of cider apples tumble out of the trees in the Sheppey orchards. Apples with unfamiliar names: Coates Jersey, Yarlington Mill, Tremlett's Bitter, and the most prized of all, the Kingston Black. Today, they are gathered up mechanically from the ground by a fruit-picking machine using rubber blades designed to reduce the chances of the apples being bruised. For hundreds of years, cider orchards played a vital part in the rural economy of the West Country and had a distinct visual impact on our landscape. In the late 19th century, there were more than 120,000 acres of orchards tipped into a hopper, ready for washing and pressing, and the yard is filled with the scent of harvested apples. Growing demand for Sheppey's ciders means that apples are also brought in from orchards further afield. The apples are washed and conveyed along channels of running water to the mill room, leaving any leaves and twigs behind. The ripe fruit is crushed, and the resulting pure apple pulp is pumped into a continuous belt press, which squeezes the pulp, a process that ensures every precious drop of the golden juice is extracted. A ton of apple pulp will yield about 750 litres of juice. The belt is cleaned to remove any remaining pulp. Nothing is wasted. The dry apple pulp, known as pomace, is retained and used by local farmers as livestock feed. Some is also used to feed Sheppey's herd of longhorn cattle during the winter months, and the cattle love it.
There have always been orchards, but each one of us has brought his own talents to farming and cider making over the years to make this business what it is today.
The apple juice is pumped into large oak vats. Here it broods in the cool darkness of the cellars, while the natural yeasts in the apple juice generate a vigorous primary fermentation. Gradually, the natural sugars are transformed into alcohol and the apple juice into cider. At this stage, each cider maker uses his own individual skill and experience to produce a unique cider by skillful blending.
The emphasis for me is on cider making, and the market today is a very different place compared with what my grandfather would have known. Cider has been a way of life for me, something I learned from my childhood and developed over the years, working alongside my father, Richard Sheppey.
The Sheppey family has been making award-winning cider in Somerset since 1780. Over 1 million bottles of cider pass through the bottling plant every year, and the demand for Sheppey's artisan bottled ciders keeps growing. Cider making is a complex art. Each and every bottle of Sheppey's cider contains the accumulated skill and experience of 2 centuries of cider making, passed down through the generations from father to son.
Which one was that one?
And this one's Hereford.